Well, good morning, everyone, again. Thanks again for coming out this morning in support of Christian education. Before we any more ado, let's who enjoyed the breakfast? Good breakfast. Let's give Stu a round. Well, thank you, Stu. He donated his time this morning to come and feed us. So thank you for that. I'm Aaron Peachy. I'm on the board for Upward Christian Academy. We're just a startup school. So thank you for being here. When I was thinking about school and why do we have private Christian schools? It is so much work. Why do we do it? Right? Sometimes we want to hang our heads and like, is this really worth it? Then I thought about who's going to remember me in 100 years? Who's going to know your name in 100 years? No one here. What's that? Those you serve. And, the next generation, our children, our grandchildren, hopefully my grandchildren know my name in 100 years. I don't know how that all plays out. But when we impact people, they remember. And Christian school is one way to, a very important way, to build into the next generation and to build out 100 years from now. So thank you, regardless of what school you're a part of or support. Thank you for being here this morning and looking into the scholarship plan opportunities for businesses and individuals. That's our primary reason for being here this morning. It takes a lot of money to run a school. And yeah, that's it. We can dance around that issue if we want, but that's just the long and short of it. And so it takes a lot of, and it's an awesome opportunity when our tax dollars can go to private schools. It's a very interesting program that we have here in Pennsylvania that we're very thankful for. So yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time out of this beautiful Saturday morning to be here. So Justin Kaufman is here with us from Faith Builders. He runs the scholarship program at Faith Builders. He's just going to give us some points of how it works, brief overview, and then we'll take questions. And then after that, we'll close. So we should be, I would say we'll be out of here in an hour. Unless we have lots of questions, which I hope we do. If you have a question, if you don't leave here clear, please ask. If there's any question in your mind how this works, ask, because now's the time to do it. So Justin, why don't you come up and we'll have a word of prayer here. God, I just thank you for Justin and his willingness to serve in this capacity. God, I pray for schools all over the world, Christian schools. God, I pray for the students that come out of that they can be equipped to go into the world, into missions, into the marketplace, and be good stewards of what you have provided for us. Just thank you again for the opportunity to be here and be with our time together. Amen.
Well, good morning. I think it's easy when we're starting out of school to have a lot of vision, and I applaud that. And I hope that this vision for Upward Christian Academy and any other school you might be interested in too can really be carried forward. One of the things you mentioned, Aaron, was that it takes a lot of work to start up a school, even just to keep one running. And one of the things that is easy to forget is how much work people did before us to even make so we can do private schooling in the States. So just a note of gratefulness there that we can even do this. Much less have things like tax credit programs, but even back in 1965, you've got like an Iowa story of Amish schools being, policemen coming to chase out Amish children out of a school because their teachers weren't accredited and having difficulties with that. among some other issues there. And children running into a cornfield to escape. Just kind of strange stories that it wouldn't cross our minds that this is a possibility anymore, hardly. 36 Pennsylvania jailings of conservative, I think mostly Amish people, a few of them even widows, in 1950, due to their unwillingness to send their 15-year-olds to school, trying to keep them home to work. Those kinds of things have happened in the past, and there's been people that have paved the way to make this even possible, to have a private school. So, I contrast that to today, and like our state, Pennsylvania's current position on providing school choice possibilities, even to the point of extending tax credit to people who give to scholarship organizations. So that's what I'm here to talk about. I come from Faith Builders. Faith Builders Scholarship Services is a little piece that I work in, but Faith Builders is a larger program up in Crawford County, Pennsylvania. It's an hour south of Erie, so I drove mostly south to get here. And there's several things that Faith Builders does. They've got several 2-year training programs for teachers and for people in ministry or going into ministry, and for people, just some general studies for people who might be looking to go into college, further college. So a 2-year training program, that's kind of the core of what Faith Builders is about. But then they also have a Christian school, kind of another section or wing of Faith Builders that serves 130 day school students, and a section called the Resource Group that also includes a bookstore, Christian learning resource that some of you might be familiar with if you're involved in education, serving our Anabaptist communities with teaching and Christian learning resources in general. Some curriculum development there and different things. The scholarship services started out over 20 years ago, 23 years ago, when the state tax credit program started out too. And Faith Builders first saw it as an opportunity to maybe help out Faith Builders Christian School with some funding, and quickly realized that this could go bigger and it could kind of help in our mission of trying to help schools and help our Anabaptist people with learning resources. Could be very helpful in that. So that's grown out of that. Now we're serving over 160 schools and have well over, I think, over 800 contributors now giving. So it's just tremendous what kind of channel this has been to help schools. So I'll detail what goes on. I work primarily in the funds that come through are primarily being used in the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program. So I'm just going to put that up here as an acronym, EITC, because it's much easier to say that each time. But keep in mind that means Educational Improvement Tax Credit. And this program is, the basic idea behind the program is just a contribution to a scholarship organization yields a 90% tax credit in Pennsylvania state taxes. So that boiled down into about the simplest language I can make it. There's some complexities and how do you apply and what all goes on there. But the basic idea, a contribution to a scholarship organization yields 90% state tax credit. So I'm just gonna give some illustration here of what this means. Hopefully a graphic can kind of help us, and I'll even put some numbers in and stuff too, to kind of outline how this works and what it would mean, what it means for schools, and how you can support school in this way. So let's just say this is you, and here's Pennsylvania. think of how to make the Keystone State logo here, and you pay your taxes. It's a 3.07% flat rate tax, income tax. It's just flat rate for everyone. So that's what you're paying in Pennsylvania. Now, I'll put us down here as a scholarship organization. So, I'm going to say Space Builders Scholarship Organization. We're down here. And if you make a contribution this way, the state the state credit or the state taxes that you pay can be wiped out, or partially wiped out, depending on how you want to look at it or how much you want to give. And then that money, you can designate where you want that money to go. So that money flows through us to provide scholarship. That's what we're allowed to do, is provide scholarships, but to provide scholarships at the schools you designate. So what that means is that you can support your local school with what would be your tax money, but instead it's going other places. So it's a redirection, if you will. In the state's eyes, it's not money coming from them at all. It's a write-off of revenue. So it's a tax credit granted by the state, but it's more of a crossing out of your taxes than it is money coming from the state. It's money coming from people giving. So that's one thing I want to make clear here, is the way it flows. And then it goes down to your school. I try to normal little building outline down here, but not just to your school, but to the students in the school or to the patron families, I should say, for scholarship, or easier term is tuition assistance, to help make it affordable for private schooling. So that's the basic way of funding it. People can channel what would be their tax money into helping families in their local school pay for schooling. If we use one of the numbers I use a good bit, because it's our minimum for giving through our program, is $3,000. So $3,000 yields 90% tax credits. I think I mentioned that earlier. So would yield $2,700 in tax credit. So I'm going to reverse engineer this a little bit. If you would owe, say, $2,700, you would give $1,000. Then this would get wiped out by your contribution. You could totally not pay anything in state tax. I'll stop to take a note here, though, that with the work that we do, one of the reasons we do this, the bigger reason is just to support schools, but one of the reasons we do it is because it does support Faith Builders some. And so a portion of each contribution, 5%, is taken as an administrative fee, if you will, but it's going straight into, if it's beyond the cost of what we incur, it's going straight to training teachers, giving back into our conservative Anabaptist communities in those ways. So if you take that $3,000 contribution I mentioned, we would take $150 school would be notified of $2,850 that they have available for scholarship. And then the school hands out papers to the patrons that they can apply for scholarship. There's a process there. I'm not going to detail that in in great length, because that's not what we're talking about this morning. But that's the flow of it. However, it's not quite that simple on. So this, I said this is you, but really, the state says businesses are the ones that get these tax credits. So how can an individual benefit, or can they benefit? And that's what one of the reasons I'm here to talk to you too. So this has been a thing that the state has given to businesses throughout the years, 20 years, and they haven't changed that method. So we've been working with businesses throughout the last 20 years and helping them apply and receiving their funds. And in 2015, the state, based on legislation pressure and stuff from different organizations, changed the way a business can be structured to allow for a kind of business that exists just for these tax credits. So it sounds strange, but there was a business structure made. These businesses are called special purpose entities, and they're usually LLCs. They're pass-through businesses, and people can enroll in these businesses just for the purpose of giving and receiving tax credit. So at the state level, they're not changing the way that their whole program works. They're just changing what a business can be, so that they don't have to really change their systems. But it opens up the door for more people to be able to give. So that is exactly what it did. We didn't, at Faith Builders, we didn't start working with these until 2017. But since then, we had 17 of them open. There's some maximum caps that a business can give, and so we have to open new businesses as the need grows. So now individuals can just join a business, but it's quite simple. And actually, it cuts down on the work, because the business has to go through some work of applying to Pennsylvania, and at a date-specific time, usually in, like if it's a new business, it has to be July 1, basically. So there's some date-specific times there. And there's a little bit more work to be done in the sign-up process there. If an individual is just working with the business, and the business is doing the work, it actually saves energy for the individuals. So it is the method we recommend anymore to most new people signing up, because it's just easier. So the basic idea is this: people people can give a donation that helps out their school, receive a 90% tax credit for it. All you have to do, all the work it takes, is an application to join a business, which is very basic. I've got some over there. And contribute the amount you wish to. And just contribute when we admit and request the payment. And then at the end of the year, you'll get a tax form from the business to file with your taxes. And it really is about that simple. So I don't have a whole lot more to elaborate on, but I'm here to say it. It's really easy. We try to make so that the work is that the end, or the initial contributor doesn't have to go through a lot of hoops. Make it as simple as possible. There are a few little, just a few little things, and I'll mention this. A member of one of these businesses must also be either a business owner or a member themselves, or an employee, which captures most people, but it sometimes does rule out people who have sole proprietorships that aren't like a registered LLC or something like that. So if you have an issue, if you have a concern that you might not qualify based on that, just talk to me. There's options there too, but I just check in. There's the other thing. So I mentioned a $3,000 minimum contribution, and that's a commitment for 2 years. And the basic reason for the 2 years is because when a business applies to the state, that's also a 2-year commitment for the business to make. And so we just ask people that give through these businesses to also make 2-year commitments to give the same amount for 2 years in a row. So that's the basic ideas. 3,000 minimum, which would yield 2,700 tax credits or more. There's not really a maximum cap. There's a theoretical one, but most times we don't get there. And so, yeah, 3,000 minimum, and you can designate the schools you want to choose. So you can choose one or more schools to support with those funds. And you can do it. It's quite simple. I'll open it up for questions. I think well, first of all, I'll say this. There are 2 things you can do to support your school as people who are interested in contributing. That's one first thing you can probably give yourself, you might be able to give. The other thing is you can tell people who you think might be able to give. I'm happy to send you flyers that you can hand out if you want to support the school in this way. There's a lot of benefits to this program. I will just say one caution that I often tell people or tell schools is that this probably shouldn't be the only contributions coming in. It's still dependent on state legislation, and it's been running for a long time. I'm not super concerned about it going away really quickly, but it's something to keep in mind that this shouldn't be drying up other donations, and it doesn't need to, because it's not really costing you that much. You should be able to give about as much anyway to support the school through normal contributions, even if you're giving through this method. Anyway, now I'll open up for questions. Last year, I just did the numbers because we are at a fiscal year, and it was 15.5 something million that we have passed through to the 160 some schools we serve. We would need to at least know that the school wants to receive the funds. And then the main qualification is that the school is a legal school in the state. So like they would need to be a registered private school with the state, which is anyway, so it's fairly basic. And the school would need to have some kind of tuition cost or charges per child. Mm-hmm. 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 That's a good question. So if the funds aren't all used, so the question is what happens if there's not all the funds used? In that case, we first work with the school for a little while to identify and make sure that there's no other families that want to sign up. So I'm not just going to turn it away right away and say, look, we're sending money elsewhere. But at some point, well, actually, we're very closely tied to working with donor designations. So I'm not going to just go and send money to another school that you designated somewhere. We will contact donors. Usually several of the larger ones or something like that to make it as simple as possible. But we'll contact donors and ask some redesignation to happen. It's not super common, but it has happened. Sure. Yeah, so a school has, we work with schools in two different ways. The one way is that most of our funds come in the next several months. That's when the state starts issuing approval letters and stuff. So some schools turn around and try to use that to issue scholarships right away in like December. And other schools, I think Upward Christian Academy is doing this, where you let all the money come in throughout one school year and use it at the beginning of the next school year. So that's already sort of rolling it forward 1 year. You can roll forward 1 year. That's the state requirements for this program, is that the funds can be rolled 1 year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nearly all the contributions come in. Mm-hmm. Right. I should mention that, and I think someone had asked about that. Yep. It's still a credit for the same year you give it in. So it's always going to be a credit for the year you give. Sure. So I'll mention that here. These tax credits, and this is something I try to tell people when they sign up. These don't, if you're taking or claiming these tax credits, don't expect them to be processed as quickly as some other refunds. They're considered a special tax credit in Pennsylvania, and because of the way they get processed through businesses, it has to go through a couple different steps, and so it does take some time. They're processing the ones right now from this past tax year. So one of the things that we tell a lot of people is that once you know you're in, is you can start making your quarterly tax payments if you make quarterly payments, or even not make them at all. The other thing is if you are an employee and have withholdings, if your employer is okay with withholding less, that's great, because then you're not out the money both in paying taxes and waiting for the refund to come back. If you give, we do often have spring options for contributions. So there's mostly tax credits approved in the fall, but sometimes new tax credit approvals come in the spring. So we're sometimes seeking new donors in the spring. Harder to get people to sign up then, because you're not at the time of year where it feels like your funds are as liquid usually for most people. But at that point, we often talk to people more about, that's close to the beginning of the year, and there's options for not making your quarterly tax payments throughout the rest of the year. But however, even if you sign up now, I would say as once you know you're admitted into, so once you've got a request for payment from us, from then on, it would be advantageous to start withholding or not, change the way your taxes are being paid. Any more questions about that? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it depends. It depends when you apply. So if people have been applying throughout, like we've had people applying throughout the last number of months, and those times we say you will be admitted in the fall, because that's when we get new tax credit approvals. But depending on when you sign up, if you sign up now, um, we'll probably be getting new tax credit approvals. The state issues them at different times of the year, but mostly in the fall. So we'll probably admit you before too long and request payment within 20 days. So just be aware of that when you sign up and say you want to give a certain amount, be ready to watch for email over the span of next several months, and able to make a payment if you're signing up. And we'll process our commitment is that we'll try to process all of the tax documents that you need and mail them out by the end of January, so that you have them ready to file about as soon as anything else is ready to file. And that just simply looks like a tax document from a business. So your accountant would be filing a K-1, an RK-1, and the various documents. They're very basic. There's a number of pages because each business tax filing always has to have several pages, but they're very basic. So all it lists is one line on a special tax credit line for 90% of the amount you gave. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. We will try, if we have the option to, and you haven't already given, like if you'd let us know beforehand, we'll try to be able to increase. So there's the option about when you sign up, we don't let you know immediately which entity you'll be in. So it is one of the strangest business structures that you sign up to become a member, but you might not know until later on which member you're actually an entity in. But we'll try to accommodate it and put it both into the same one so you don't get tax forms from two businesses. Yeah. Or you can we would try to make it all one. It could. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That can easily happen too. So if that must be, or if you already gave once, and then you say, come to the end of the year, and you call us and say, do you have any more tax credits available, and could I maybe give more? We might. And that might be through another business. You would just have two business filings to enter with your taxes. Like, very basic again, but it's just two instead of one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's happened most years. Last year was the first year that we actually ended up with more credits, and that was largely because the state, two things, but one of the main things was the state budget really increased. The other thing was that the state budget wasn't actually finalized until December sometime, I think it was. And so they were issuing all these tax credits really late and actually rolled into the following year, this year, and it was harder to get people to sign up in the spring. So there were tax credits unused, and those just end up back at the state. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's correct. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yep. It can definitely cap out. Right now, if you sign up, you would probably get in. From what we're seeing and from what we know. Another thing I'll mention is that if you're once you become a recurring donor, once you've given 1 year, the next year you'd always be contacted. If you're in your second year, you'd always be contacted around September 15th. If you're in I got that wrong again. It's August 15th. So if you're in your second year, August 15th. If you're in a new year 1 of 2 cycle again and you want to give again, it'd be August 1st. But you get priority no matter what if you've been a member the year before. So prior year members always are the first ones that can give. If you're in a new year 1 of 2 cycle and decide to opt out, that then opens the door for new contributors to kind of take your place too. And I will say this too, that we do have some flexibility. As I mentioned, the 2-year commitment. There's lots of people that try to give or want to give 1 year. And so this is where flexibility comes in more than if you would be a business just applying straight to the state. The state's pretty inflexible in that 2-year commitment. We can often help find a replacement if there's a hard year or something. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So with this special purpose entity program, or SPE, so we often we use acronyms, there's not so much of a deadline. If there's tax credits available or expected to be available, you can sign up. What you saw was the business application, which is July 1. That's it. There's theoretical options for after July 1, but the state evaluates all applications based on the day, or like they'll randomize the applications from the first day after July 1, and usually all funds are used up from July 1 applicants. So that's why I say, if you're a new business applying directly to the state, July 1 is the deadline. And we do still help about almost 200 businesses do that. A lot of them are recurring ones that have been giving for years, and they get priority with the state too. But new applicants, we generally recommend this method because it tends to be easy, or it tends to be more likely that you'll be able to get in. Mm-hmm. I generally recommend that. Yeah. I'm willing to do it the other way too, if that's the way you'd prefer. But our usual recommendation is that way. It's still, there's no difference in the fee that Faith Builders takes off. There's no difference in the tax credit. We do a bit more work technically, but it's more likely to get you in. And so that's why we recommend that. That varies per year, but yes, some years it's been 1 in 10 or something like that. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but there's been years, for a stretch of years especially, it was the kind of thing where a business could be applying for 5 or 6 or 7 years and not get in. Other businesses would try 1 year and they'd get in because it's randomized. If you applied on July 1, those are all randomized then, and they'll pull off the top. It really is. So that's one of the reasons why I just say it generally works better this way, because these businesses are already in. They're already contributing businesses, and as such, they get state priority. And then we can request increases from time to time, which is one of the reasons why we can continue to admit new members. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. That's true. And many of them there's a lot giving through us, yeah. Because you still have to give it through a registered scholarship organization. And there's a lot of us in the state. They're giving through others too. But yeah, even if you're a direct business applicant to the state, you give through a scholarship organization. But a lot of the early ones are still giving in that direct way. Yeah. No, not there would be a limit. We try to say that we recommend you sign up for even 100 to each school. So you could list even at the 20, even at our minimum, that would be 30 schools. I mean, I don't recommend doing that, but you can really select the schools you want, as long as they're a school that we work with. And if it's a new school that we don't work with, talk to us about it, and we'll talk to the school board about it. We'll talk with them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, we'll. I mean that the whole thing of even being able to designate schools is scholarship organization specific. So uh, the state doesn't say you have to designate a school. You could just give to this big scholarship organization where any student from the state can apply, and we evaluate and send out scholarships to any. But we are more tied into donor designation. That's how we work. Where we'll only give scholarships through, we'll honor the donor designations and only award scholarships to students in the school you designate. But it can be numerous, and it can be more than 4. We have large donors giving to many more than 4. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's not something. I mean, we must provide scholarships to K through 12 students attending a school in the Commonwealth. That's our basic wording. There's there's some restrictions on um, income level of the patrons applying, and that's fairly high. It usually encompasses about 75% of patrons, if not more, for most schools. The income level this past year was a base rate of 108,444 per patron, plus an extra 19,088 per dependent. So, you've got 5 dependents, you can actually be making around 200,000 some and still qualify to receive scholarships. Our suggestion to the school then is based on that. So when people apply, they send in a 1-page application listing the student and some of their contact information so we can mail them and stuff, and an income verification, which is the first page of their income form 1040. So basic, just so we can verify tax information and verify their gross income. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, if you're looking to start a school in the state of Pennsylvania, it's required to register in some way, and there's not a whole lot of requirements for registration if you're operating under a bona fide religious organization. So what he said is exactly correct. That there's a lot more flexibility for those kinds of schools to exist. There's still some mandatory attendance requirements, those basic things that a school must do in the state of Pennsylvania, but it's under the religious umbrella um, of a religious organization. That school can function and kind of manage its own system, and that's considered a school in the state of Pennsylvania, and that's our requirement, is that we help with K through 12 schooling for children attending a school. So that's about as basic as, or the wording doesn't get a whole lot more complicated than that actually in our instructions. And our hope is it won't. In some states, it does come down to, you need to provide, something like this needs to provide funding only to accredited schools that have accredited teachers and things like that. It's not the way it's set up in Pennsylvania. Whoever, you must have a Pennsylvania income tax. That's the basic idea. So it needs to be a business that's registered in the state of Pennsylvania. Sometimes that theoretically be a business that might have been registered in 2 or 3 states or something, but they at least would have probably some physical location in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because of your, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. If they are registered in Pennsylvania and paying Pennsylvania income taxes, um, they should be able to. Yeah. Now, what I'd want to talk with them and check in to make sure everything's okay there. We don't work with a lot of those. But the main thing is it needs to be, it's only granted to PA income taxes. It's a tax credit for Pennsylvania, so that's what it can cover. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. That's a good question, and I know that if they'd have a physical location and are registered as such, but yeah, basically if they're paying income tax liability, I know that individuals who live in another state and have PA income tax liability are doing that through a special purpose entity. That's maybe the direction I would head is recommending them to sign up as an individual rather than through their business. But yeah, we can assist them with their Pennsylvania income tax liability. That portion. Not state sales tax. No, as far as it goes, for most of our people, at least, it's only the income tax. I think there'd be a few other kinds of taxes it could relate to, but it never even factors in for anyone, really. I could pull out the document and tell you, but it's other strange taxes that most people don't don't pay. So the one that we're concerned about is a 3.07% flat rate tax. So the basic idea is if you're making $88,000 or more gross income, you have $2,700 in tax liability most likely. So that's that cap at which we would say, well, your tax cost could be fully reimbursed at that point. Reimbursed, fully credited. Um, if you give 3,000. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on their adjusted gross, which does factor in profit loss from businesses. The one thing that doesn't factor in is if someone is a large business, or not even a large business, but has a business where the profit was pretty substantial, but they ended up putting a lot of the profit back into the business, and a lot of people do. So the realized income for the family and what they can actually pay in tuition might not be actually. So this is on the receiving side of things again. So we're going toward the family side of things here, but every once in a while that we run across those people that call us even and say, we really still can hardly afford tuition. Their gross income looks high, but when I talk to them, they're often either a large capital gains or a business income where they put most of the money back into the business. Um, yeah, in a non-deductible way, and those two ways often make so that we can't help those families, unfortunately, because it's just a limitation that we're stuck to. Right. Yeah, profit and loss usually will take care of that, unless there's a good bit of income, most of it kept in, or not. If it's a pass-through business, it's not technically just kept in the business. You received it and put it back into the business. And in those cases, sometimes there's people that have really kind of have a lot invested in their business, but may not actually have realistic income to pay for school tuition or something. Those are the difficult cases where it's hard to, I wish we could help sometimes, but unfortunately we can't always. But again, that's on the upper 10 to 20% of people in most schools. The majority of people do qualify to receive scholarships in most schools. Mm-hmm. Yes. I often don't mention that too much, but yeah, it actually is. So when you receive tax papers, it is a contribution. That business that you gave the full amount of your money to a charitable organization. A scholarship organization is a charitable organization. And so the amount, your accountant is the one who does most of this work, and most of them know what to do with it. But the amount that you didn't claim as tax credit, so in the case of $2,700, $300 of that is a charitable contribution, or can be claimed as such. So it even reduces that a little bit farther, and you're actually not even paying quite 300 to pay or to give 3,000. Does that answer the question? You can't double dip. Yeah. Yeah. No, you can't double dip. So anything that was already claimed as a benefit or a tax credit cannot be claimed as a charitable contribution then. Anything that is not charitable contribution or anything that is not credited can be. So, yeah. The 10% that you didn't get credit for. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, that is absolutely correct. So if you would be giving, yeah, so if for some reason your tax liability would be lower than that $2,700 mark, and you still give our minimum, you would technically be able to claim more as a charitable contribution, but then you wouldn't be able to be using all of it against your taxes. So you can give even if you can't use all the credits, and it's still probably going to work out as a more advantageous or at more advantageous to your wallet, because it's still significantly more credits usually than what you'll get in a charitable contribution, even if you don't have that full tax liability. So, good question. We are required to report some information to the state about what comes through us. So, in the past 20 some years, it's been mostly aggregate data. Like I report how many children received X amount of dollars in this county. And there was complaint at the state level about that being just very non-transparent. And I would agree to some extent, because that data could almost be made up, and there's no way that for them to know. So they did introduce some legislation last year. This isn't even in effect until next year. That will make so that we have to report some more. And on those reports, there will be a line per student which feels like a lot of reporting, but our software will generate it, but it won't list anything about the student besides just tuition owed and tuition discounted and county and school they were in. So there's a theoretical possibility that they'll know which schools they went to. There's so much data there, and from our knowledge of how the state works with charitable organizations, private schools, I do not anticipate any kind of like digging into that really and trying to, like, I don't know what that will give them that will make them come after a school really. Because they know those schools are there anyway, so no big deal really. So I'm not really concerned about that. But just so you're aware that the money at least next year will be reported that like roughly where it's going. But it's going to be, I think there's several hundred scholarship organizations in the state, and $500 million going through this tax credit program. And so you know how much data there is sitting there. They're collecting it, but that's about what they're doing with it. It did not, so the money does not come from the state. I think I tried to explain that here. Right. And so, the state can say, as a scholarship organization, you should only give funding to certain situations, and so that I think I explained that we can provide to schools, K through 12 schools, to assist in tuition. That's the basic idea. Yeah. There's no really jurisdiction over the schools and what funds they get there. A school voucher program, I talked with a few of you about this, would be a different story if the state would have some kind of school voucher program like some states do, where students receive a voucher from the state if their parents want them to go to a private school somewhere else. That's money straight from the state that could be a little more dictated. But this program is not that way. And I will just say this. I work with the DCED, Department of Community and Economic Development, tax credit division that works with these kind of tax credits, and I just really appreciate them. So the director there, I can call him up, talk with him about stuff. There's 5, I think, analysts that work there that, work with each business, and great people, really. It's one of the few departments in the state that I'll say I actually kind of enjoy calling them. They're good to work with, and seem to be kind of on this. I mean, they really do seem to enjoy what they're doing largely, and that they actually kind of know what they're helping, and I feel that from them. So I like to relay that information at least. That it's actually a pleasure to work with them. Yeah. Yeah, so you can pick up a packet over here if you want. There's an online application process actually, which is just basic information for us to contact you. It does. Yes, you can sign up through us without your accountant if you want to. I recommend that you talk with your accountant and let them know it's going to happen, because they're going to be filing a paper for you. And also, if you have questions about how much to give, that's your accountant question usually. How many state taxes am I paying? What could I be giving? Think about it 2 years in a row, not just what you're doing this year. But yeah, you can sign up right now if you want to. Yeah, the basic information really is contact information. We'll need your social security number for tax purposes. And it really is about that simple. And how much you want to give in which schools. We do, but paper is fine. perfectly fine. So we'll take them any day too. And our general communication method is by email. So if you put an email in, be sure to look at it, or be sure to use an email that you look at. And don't just disregard emails from us, because usually they're saying something that you need to do, or something like you need to, now's the time to give, or what's the next step, which is very basic. You'll get a few emails throughout the year. Every once in a while, there might be emails saying there's extra tax credits, you can spread the news. Those are the basic emails you'll get. But each time it's something that, it's not just spam. It's something that you can act on or tell people if that you're interested in letting people know about tax credit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you took someone's second year, you should be getting a packet in the mail in about a week. We have most of them ready to send and stamp on them and everything, and I just have to put them in and send out emails. So the process has started. Usually around August 1st is when we send them out. So they would have filled in someone's place in the second year, and now they'd be getting a new packet for starting a new 2-year commitment. Yeah. Sorry, I should have explained that more. So if they would have taken someone's place, and that had to happen sometime anyway. So that sounds like what happened. You're just get a reapplication packet for another 2-year now. A lot of good questions. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. One of the ways that I usually say, this is the most friendly way, and to me feels like the most accurate way of portraying it, is that similar to other tax credits, your money is going straight to what you're contributing toward. You're giving to a charitable organization, scholarship organization, to benefit your school. The state sees that, writes off what would be your taxes, and so in that way, a lot of people are looking at it as not money from the state in any way, but just a gift that the state allows us to write off our taxes because we gave to the school. It really, the way the credits work is similar to child dependent tax, or dependent tax credit. Say if you get any energy tax credit, it's similar. You're just getting a credit because you did something, or because you have a child or something like that. It's about that basic. It's not the same as grant money. Right. It's not really much different than any charitable contribution tax credit. It's just a different kind. You're giving through a different method. Now, on the receiving side of it, we have some people that are opposed, some groups opposed, and I'm not here to say that it's the right thing or the wrong thing to be opposed to, who say probably the largest question that comes up is, well, a lot of times they have to first kind of change the way their tuition structure is set up, because they operate largely through donations or something. So that's one question. The other question is, do we as a people want to use a program that's based on state legislation? And so that's another, and that's a question that groups wrestle over and come to different conclusions on. So I talk with a lot of people about those kinds of things, and my people come out at really different places. So. Yeah, yeah, and you're still paying school real estate taxes. So here's one way that you can divert some other tax money to support something you actually want to support. So I don't want to diminish the fact that we should be grateful that the state allows this option. Uh, it has been a huge, huge blessing to schools. And so I mentioned the amount of money coming through us last year, and that just really is tremendous in helping schools be able to afford to pay their teachers, afford quality resources, that kind of thing. My call, though, too, is to make so it's not something that you become dependent on. So, and I think a grateful people are not usually dependent people. So if we can cultivate gratefulness, I think it's a good way to avoid becoming dependent on something, whether it be a lot of contributions from us or large contributions from some other source. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to interact with you, and that's a lot of very good questions. So I appreciate your time and your focus and being willing to sit here and talk about tax stuff for a long time. It doesn't feel like that fun a topic in a lot of ways, but I appreciate how you've been interested and involved in the conversation. Thank you.
Well, good morning. My name is Glenn Lead. I was asked by Linwood to give a little, testimony about the EITC program. Since our school has been using it for quite a few years. I'm involved with Pass Valley Christian School. We're in Pass Valley. And the school got involved with the program early on, and I was trying to think when we actually started. I'm thinking it was around 2008, maybe, somewhere in that ballpark. I know Brent Rosenberry at the time was treasurer, and he got the ball rolling on that when Brent moved out of the area, and I came on the school board, took his place. I pretty much kind of fell in my lap to take care of that, and so I was kind of involved at both ends of the spectrum, on the side of being a business owner and applying, and also on the school side, making sure the school signed up and making sure the funds are there, and also getting all the applications out to the families and allocating the amount that we distributed to the different families. And I do know that the program has greatly eased the financial pain at school. It was before I was there. They said a big part of the school board discussion a lot of times was, okay, so where are we going to come up with the money to pay our bills this month? And occasionally they had the board members chip in some extra money just to keep the school running. And fortunately, since we signed up to this program, we haven't had that issue. So when we first started, we were kind of doing the thing where the money would come in and we were trying to use it the same year, and it was really tough to figure out, okay, how much are we going to reduce your tuition, because we don't know how much money we're getting in until about December. And so early on, my goal was to roll it forward 1 year. I didn't even realize that was kind of the accepted or expected practice. But now that we've gotten to that point where we roll it forward 1 year, contributions that came in last year are available this year, and now we have all the funds available, and we know exactly how much we have to contribute or to reduce tuition. That really has helped a lot. I would say for anybody that's looking to sign up, Faith Builders has really made it easy. I know the early days, first year or two, I filled out some of these forms, and And if you've ever filled out tax forms or some of those government forms, you got to check this box or fill this in anymore. Once you're in, they send over an application. All you do is first year you sign your name and what you think you're going to give that year or for the next 2 years, and you're done. And the second year, you're already set for the amount you're going to give, and all you do is sign the form. And so that part is very easy. School sign-ups is as simple. So I'm signing up our school, so it's basically just a form where I fill in the school's name and address and what our tuition rate is, and I think that's about it. And the family application form is pretty straightforward. The family just fills in family information, their students, and I think the grades they're in, and then the front page is their tax form. So I think that's about all I have. So if you're an individual looking to contribute and you want to add another name on that list of schools, feel free to write in Pass Valley School. We're always looking for donations also. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Justin. Joshua Martin, treasurer at Upward Christian Academy there. Great to meet you, Justin. Really glad you made the long trip down here. Spent a lot of time on the phone and emailing back and forth with him just in the last year and a half, trying to learn the program and all the ins and outs on contributor side and on the school side and on the family side as well. And he's made it super simple, super helpful. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out today, taking your time this morning, and also thank people that have given to our school. We received $80,400 in donations, and just this week we got the whole grant list for all the families, and it was just humbling to see what that did for every family. I heard a story from a family that signed up that enrolled at our school, and they were like, we want our children to go to a good Christian school, but we have no idea how we're going to afford this tuition. And we, as a board, tried very hard to keep our tuition affordable and our teacher pay high, so we have good teachers and long-term teachers, but that comes at a cost. Anyway, so hearing that from a family, and it's just like, it kind of like hurts you a little bit, like, well, hopefully it doesn't put them out. And then this came through, and I seen the award money for them, and I said, they'll be all right. God came through this program, through all our donors, and it's absolutely amazing to see that donation go directly to the family right off their tuition and really ease their bill. I mean, we have 96% of our families got approved, and the highest award on there is 69%. And there's a pretty big range there, and it's just amazing to see that. So we really appreciate it, and really appreciate you taking your time to look into this. And as far as schools, other schools looking into it as well, really encourage you to really look at it and try to help take the burden off your families, and but yet keep your school operating at a high level. So thank you all.
I can't. Yeah.